The night Lena Park begged a stranger for help, she thought she was choosing safety. She was wrong. The man who saved her from a stalker outside a grease-stained cafe wasn't a hero. He was something far more dangerous. Adrian Voss didn't just scare off her attacker, he made him disappear. Now, pulled into a world where protection comes with a price and mercy is a weakness, Lena faces an impossible choice. Run from the only man who makes her feel safe, or embrace a darkness she never knew existed. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Seth. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago. Lena Park pushed the chipped mug to the edge of the counter and glanced at the clock mounted above the kitchen window. 1:47 a.m. Another 40 minutes until her shift ended. Another 40 minutes of wiping down tables that didn't need wiping and pretending the fluorescent lights didn't make her head throb. The Moonlight Cafe wasn't much. Cracked vinyl booths, a jukebox that only played 3 songs, and a permanent smell of burnt toast and dish soap. But it was work, and work meant rent. And rent meant she didn't have to go back to sleeping in her car like she had 6 months ago. She'd take burnt toast over that any day. "You good, Lena?" Marcus called from the kitchen. He was the night cook, 50-something with hands scarred from years of handling hot pans and a tendency to hum old blues songs while he worked. "Yeah, just counting down." "Aren't we all?" The cafe was empty except for a regular in the corner booth. Old Jerry, who nursed the same cup of decaf for 3 hours every night and never caused trouble. He'd be gone by 2, shuffling out into the night with his worn jacket and that tired smile he always gave her. Lena grabbed a rag and started wiping down the counter, even though it was already clean. Anything to keep her hands busy. That's when she noticed the man outside. He was standing across the street, half hidden in the shadow of a closed pawn shop, just standing there, watching. Her stomach tightened. She told herself it was nothing. People stood on streets. It was a city. But something about the way he held himself, too still, too focused, made her skin crawl. Lena turned away, forcing herself to breathe normally. She was being paranoid. She was always being paranoid. That's what happened when you grew up the way she did. When you learned early that the world didn't care if you were scared. 5 minutes passed. When she looked again, he was closer. Not across the street anymore. Now he was on the sidewalk outside the cafe, his face partially visible under the streetlight. Thin features. Dark hoodie. Eyes that didn't blink enough. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. "Marcus?" "Yeah?" There's a guy outside." Marcus stepped out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. He followed her gaze, squinting through the window. "The one by the streetlight?" "Yeah." "Want me to go check it out?" No, it's fine. Probably just waiting for someone." But she didn't believe that, and from the look Marcus gave her, he didn't either. "I can walk you to your car when you're done," he offered. "That'd be good." Old Jerry left at 2:15, shuffling past the window without noticing the man who'd moved even closer, now standing near the cafe's entrance. Lena's hands were shaking as she locked the door behind Jerry, flipping the closed sign with fingers that felt numb. "Okay," Marcus said quietly. "Let's get you out of here." They went through the back exit, the alley door that opened onto a narrow stretch of broken asphalt and overflowing dumpsters. Lena's car was parked 3 blocks away. Employee parking was a joke in this neighborhood, and the walk had never felt longer. "You see him?" Marcus muttered. Lena didn't have to answer. The man in the hoodie was following them, keeping a careful distance but not bothering to hide anymore. "Walk faster," Marcus said. They did. But so did he. By the time they reached her car, a beat-up Honda with a passenger door that didn't lock right, Lena's whole body was shaking. Marcus stayed close, his bulk reassuring even though she knew he wasn't a fighter. He was a cook, a good man, not someone built for this kind of trouble. "Get in," he said. "I'll wait until you're gone." She fumbled with her keys, dropped them, swore under her breath. When she finally got the door open, the man was less than 20 feet away. "Hey!" Marcus shouted. Back off! The man didn't back off. He smiled. That smile, cold, wrong, like something worn rather than felt, made Lena's blood turn to ice. Lena Park, the man said. His voice was flat, almost bored. We need to talk. She doesn't know you, Marcus said, stepping between them. You need to leave. This doesn't concern you, old man. It does now. The man reached into his hoodie pocket. Lena's mind went blank with fear. She couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except watch as Marcus tensed and the man's hand emerged holding a phone. Just a phone. But the threat was there anyway, coiled in the air like smoke. You've been hard to pin down, the man said, ignoring Marcus entirely. His eyes stayed locked on Lena. But I'm patient, and now we're going to have that conversation. I don't know you, Lena whispered. You will. That's when she ran. Not to her car, not back to the cafe. She ran toward the only place that looked like it might have people, might have witnesses, might have anything other than empty streets and broken streetlights. There was a bar half a block down, still lit up despite the late hour. The kind of place she'd normally avoid. Too expensive, too polished, too much like it belonged to a different version of the city. But right now it looked like salvation. She burst through the door, gasping, her sneakers squeaking against marble floors that definitely didn't belong in this neighborhood. The bar was nearly empty, just a bartender polishing glasses and two men in suits sitting at a corner table, their conversation stopping the moment she stumbled in. Please, Lena gasped. There's a man. He was following me. The bartender started to move, but one of the men at the table stood first. He was tall. That was her first impression. Tall and sharp in a way that made the expensive suit seem almost incidental. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone, all brutal angles and cold calculation. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Gray, pale as winter ice, and currently fixed on her with an intensity that made her earlier fear seem quaint. What man? His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of quiet that made you listen harder. Lena pointed toward the door with a shaking hand. He was following me from work. I don't know him. He said my name. The man in the suit didn't ask questions. He simply walked past her and opened the door. The street outside was empty, no man in a hoodie, no Marcus, just the quiet hum of a city that had learned to mind its own business. I swear he was there, Lena said. I'm not making this up. The man studied her for a long moment. Then he glanced at his companion, who'd remained seated. Victor, check the perimeter. The other man rose without a word and disappeared through a side door. Sit, the tall man said to Lena. It wasn't quite a command, but it wasn't a suggestion either. She sat at the bar, her legs threatening to give out anyway. The bartender slid a glass of water toward her without being asked. Lena drank it in 3 desperate gulps, only realizing how dry her mouth had been. Start from the beginning, the man said. He remained standing, hands in his pockets, utterly relaxed. But there was something coiled about him, like a weapon at rest. So Lena told him about the cafe, about the man watching her, about the chase and Marcus, and the smile that had made her skin crawl. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, Your name is Lena Park. It wasn't a question. How did you... He used it. I'm assuming he didn't guess. The implications of that settled over her like cold water. Someone had been watching her long enough to learn her name, to learn her schedule, to know exactly where she'd be at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I need to call the police, she said. You could do that. The man's expression didn't change. They'll take a statement, file a report, tell you to be careful, and tomorrow night, when you leave work, he'll be waiting again. You don't know that? I do. The certainty in his voice made her believe him. Then what am I supposed to do? He studied her for another long moment, Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Plain white. A phone number embossed in black. Nothing else. If he approaches you again, call this number. Who are you? Adrian Voss. The name meant nothing to her. She took the card anyway because she didn't know what else to do. Victor returned through the side door, shaking his head slightly. Adrian's jaw tightened, the only sign of reaction. He's gone, Adrian said. But that doesn't mean he won't come back. Oh, why would he come back? What does he want from me? That's what I intend to find out. There was something in the way he said it that sent a different kind of shiver down her spine. Not fear exactly. Something else. Something that felt almost like safety, even though everything about Adrian Voss screamed danger. I should go, Lena said, standing on unsteady legs. Where's your car? 3 blocks east. Victor will drive you? That's not necessary. It wasn't a question, and this time it really wasn't. Victor was already moving toward the door, keys in hand. Adrian walked with them, his presence somehow making the empty street feel less threatening. When they reached her Honda, Victor did a quick check of the interior before nodding to Adrian. Thank you, Lena said, though the words felt inadequate. Adrian's expression softened fractionally. Be careful, Miss Park, and keep that number close. She drove home with Victor's headlights in a rear-view mirror the entire way, only disappearing after she'd parked and made it safely inside her apartment building. That night, Lena didn't sleep. She sat by her window watching the street below, turning Adrian's card over and over in her hands. The embossed numbers caught the light from passing cars, and she tried to tell herself she'd never need to use them. She was lying. She already knew, somewhere deep in her gut, that this wasn't over. Morning came gray and unwelcome. Lena dragged herself through a shower and 2 cups of coffee that did nothing to clear the fog in her head. She had the day shift at a different job, data entry at a medical billing company, the kind of soul-crushing work that paid slightly better than the cafe and required her to pretend she cared about insurance codes. She was halfway through her commute when she saw the news alert on her phone. Man found beaten in West District. Police investigating. Her thumb hovered over the headline. She shouldn't click it. She already knew what she'd find. She clicked it anyway. The article was brief. A man had been discovered in an alley near Madison Street, just 2 blocks from the Moonlight Cafe, around 4 a.m. Severe injuries. Currently in critical condition at Metro General. Police had no suspects, but were asking anyone with information to come forward. There was a photo, grainy, pulled from security footage. It was him, the man in the hoodie. Lena's coffee went cold in her hand. She made it through work on autopilot, typing numbers that blurred together. Taking a lunch break, she spent staring at her phone. Marcus called around 2. You see the news? His voice was tight. Yeah. That was him, wasn't it? The guy from last night. I think so. A long pause. Lena, what the hell happened after you ran? I went to a bar. There was a man there. He walked me back to my car. That's it. The guy who walked you back, did he give you a name? She hesitated. Why? Because I've been in this neighborhood a long time, and I know what happens to people who cross certain lines. That man who was following you, someone sent a message, a real clear one. You think it was the man from the bar. I think you should be careful who you owe favors to. After Marcus hung up, Lena sat in her cubicle and stared at the gray fabric walls. She should feel relieved. The threat was gone. She was safe, but all she felt was hollow. She left work at 5 and headed straight home, taking a different route than usual, checking her mirrors every 30 seconds. Her apartment building looked exactly the same. Weathered brick, a door that stuck, stairs that creaked, but somehow it felt different now, like she'd crossed a line without meaning to. Inside her apartment, she locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and put the chain on for good measure. Then she sat on her couch and stared at Adrian's card. She should throw it away. Should forget this whole thing ever happened. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but her hand moved on its own, lifting the phone to her ear. Miss Park? Adrian's voice was unmistakable. How did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is that we need to talk. About what? About the man who was following you, and about why he wasn't acting alone. Her blood went cold. What are you talking about? Not over the phone. There's a restaurant on 5th and Carson. Be there at 8. I'm not going anywhere with you. Then you'll die. The words were delivered with such casual certainty that for a moment Lena forgot to breathe. That's not funny, she whispered. It's not meant to be. 8 o'clock, Miss Park. Don't be late. He hung up. Lena sat frozen on her couch, the phone still pressed to her ear, listening to dead air. She had two choices: stay home and hope Adrian was wrong, or walk into the unknown and hope he was right. Neither option felt safe, but only one felt like choosing. The restaurant was nothing like she expected. Lena had pictured something dark, underground, the kind of place where deals were made in shadow. Instead, she found herself standing outside an elegant bistro with soft lighting and couples sharing wine at tables covered in white cloth. She almost turned around, but the door opened before she could, and a hostess with a practiced smile gestured her inside. Miss Park, Mr. Voss is expecting you. Of course he was. Adrian sat at a private table near the back, partially hidden by a screen of frosted glass. He stood when she approached, the gesture automatic and oddly formal. You came, he said. You said I'd die if I didn't. I don't make threats, Miss Park. Only observations. He pulled out a chair for her. After a moment's hesitation, she sat. Up close, in better lighting, Adrian was even more striking than she'd remembered. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and those pale eyes that seemed to see straight through whatever defenses she tried to maintain. You're not going to explain the phone number thing? She asked. No. Great. Love the transparency. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You have spirit. That's good. You'll need it. A waiter appeared, poured water, disappeared. Adrian ordered for both of them without asking her preference. Normally, that would have annoyed her. Tonight, she was too rattled to care. The man who followed you is named David Chen, Adrian said once they were alone again. Low-level enforcer. Works for whoever pays him. Currently in critical condition with 3 broken ribs, a shattered jaw, and injuries that suggest someone wanted to make a point. Did you do it? Would it matter if I said no? Yes. He leaned back slightly, studying her. Then no. I didn't touch him, but I know who did. Who? Someone who works for me. The confirmation settled between them like a stone. Why? Lena asked. I'm nobody. I work at a cafe and do data entry. Why would someone like you, someone who has people who do that to other people, why would you care if some creep followed me home? Because David Chen wasn't following you randomly. He was following you because someone hired him to. The room tilted slightly. Hired him to do what? Watch you, track your movements, report back. To who? That's what I'm trying to find out. Food arrived. Lena stared at the plate, some kind of fish with vegetables she couldn't name, and felt her stomach turn. You're telling me I'm being targeted by someone, and you don't know who or why? Yes. And your solution is to, what? Beat up anyone who looks at me wrong? My solution is to keep you alive long enough to figure out who wants you dead and why. She laughed. It came out wrong, high and sharp. This is insane. I'm nobody. That's what you keep saying. But somebody disagrees. Adrian cut into his food with precise movements, utterly calm while her world unraveled. What do you want from me? Lena asked. Nothing. People like you don't do favors for nothing. People like me. He repeated it softly, almost amused. What kind of person do you think I am, Miss Park? The kind who has people beaten in alleys. The kind who knows my phone number without asking for it. The kind who makes problems disappear. All true. Does that frighten you? Yes? Good. Fear keeps you cautious, and caution keeps you breathing. He took a sip of wine, his expression unreadable. I'm going to be honest with you because I think you can handle it. I run operations in this city that most people don't know exist. I make money in ways that would make your head spin. And I've done things that would justify that fear you're feeling right now. Then why help me? Because someone targeted you, and in doing so, they made a mistake. What mistake? They chose someone under my protection. Lena shook her head. I'm not under your protection. I don't even know you. You know me now. The certainty in his voice was absolute, like he'd decided something and the universe would simply have to catch up. I don't want this, Lena said. Whatever this is, whatever you think I need, I don't want it. What you want stopped being relevant the moment David Chen learned your name. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression tightening fractionally. Excuse me a moment. He stood and walked toward the front of the restaurant, phone to his ear. Through the frosted glass, Lena could see his silhouette, rigid with tension. She should leave, should walk out right now and never look back. But her legs wouldn't move. Adrian returned 2 minutes later. His face was carefully neutral, but something had changed in his eyes. We need to go, he said quietly. What happened? Someone just tried to break into your apartment. The world stopped. What? My people were watching your building. They intercepted 2 men attempting to bypass your locks. The men are currently being questioned. Lena stood on numb legs. Questioned where? Somewhere you don't need to know about. He placed a hand on her lower back, light, impersonal, but somehow steadying, and guided her toward the exit. A black car was already waiting. Victor sat in the driver's seat. He nodded to Adrian, his expression grim. Where are we going? Lena asked as Adrian opened the back door for her. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. She could refuse, could demand to be taken to the police, to her friends, to anywhere but wherever Adrian Voss thought somewhere safe meant. But 2 men had just tried to break into her home, and she didn't know why. Didn't know who sent them. Didn't know anything except that the man offering her protection was also the most dangerous person she'd ever met. She got in the car. Adrian slid in beside her. Victor pulled smoothly into traffic. Tell me what's happening, Lena said. All of it. Adrian was quiet for a moment, watching the city slide past. 3 months ago, a man named Marcus Liu crossed someone he shouldn't have. He took something that didn't belong to him, information, leverage, I'm not sure which. He went into hiding before anyone could make him answer for it. What does that have to do with me? Marcus Liu had a daughter. Her name was also Lena. Different last name, different life. She died 2 years ago in a car accident. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They think I'm her, Lena whispered. Yes. But I'm not. I've never even heard of Marcus Liu. I know, but they don't. And by the time they figure out their mistake, you'll already be dead. The car turned onto a tree-lined street that looked like it belonged in a different city. Tall houses behind iron gates. Gardens that required full-time staff. Money that whispered instead of shouted. They stopped in front of a modern structure that was more glass than brick, elegant and severe. This is your home, Lena said. Not a question. Yes. You're bringing me to your home. It's the safest place I can offer. She looked at him, really looked at him, at the expensive suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, at the watch that caught the streetlight, at the face that could have belonged to a CEO or a senator or anyone except what he actually was. Who are you? She asked again. This time he answered differently. I'm the man who's going to keep you alive. Everything else is just details. The car door opened. Victor stood waiting. Lena took a breath and stepped out into a life that was no longer hers to control. Behind them, the city hummed with its usual indifference. Somewhere in its depths, people were making mistakes, crossing lines, learning too late that some threats didn't come with warnings. Lena Park had learned that lesson in a single night. And now, standing at the entrance to Adrian Voss's home, she understood that going back was no longer an option. The only way forward was through. Adrian's home was nothing like Lena expected. She'd imagined dark wood and leather, the kind of masculine excess that screamed money and power. Instead, she found herself standing in a space of clean lines and brutal simplicity. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, concrete floors, minimal furniture, everything sharp angles and controlled emptiness. It felt like him. "The guest room is upstairs," Adrian said, shrugging out of his jacket. Underneath, his shirt was perfectly pressed, not a wrinkle despite the night they'd had. "Second door on the left. Victor will bring your things." "What things?" "Everything I own is in my apartment." "Not anymore. I sent people to collect what you'd need." The casual invasion should have made her angry. Instead, she just felt tired. "You sent people into my apartment. Would you prefer to wear the same clothes for the next week?" "I'd prefer to have a choice." Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked to a cabinet built into the wall and poured 2 glasses of something amber. He handed her one. "You have a choice, Miss Park. You can stay here, where I can protect you. Or you can leave, and I'll have someone drive you wherever you want to go. A hotel, a friend's house, another city entirely. But understand that if you leave, you're on your own. And the people looking for Marcus Liu's daughter won't stop just because you're inconvenient to find." Lena took the glass. The liquid burned going down, but the warmth that followed was almost welcome. "How long?" "How long what?" "How long until they figure out I'm not her?" "Could be days, could be never. Depends on how thorough they are. And in the meantime, I'm supposed to just, what, hide here?" "You're supposed to stay alive. Everything else we'll figure out as we go." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was insane, that she didn't belong in a world where people broke into apartments and men got beaten in alleys over cases of mistaken identity. But the words stuck in her throat because he was right. She had nowhere else to go. "The guest room," she said quietly. "Second door on the left." "Yes." "Is there a lock?" Something flickered in his expression. Not quite hurt, but close. "Yes, though it won't keep me out if I really want in." Comforting. "I'm not trying to comfort you, I'm trying to be honest." He finished his drink and set the glass down with precise care. "Get some sleep, Miss Park. Tomorrow we start figuring out who made this mistake and how to make them regret it." Lena climbed the stairs on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. The guest room was as spare as the rest of the house. A bed with white sheets, a single chair, a window that overlooked a garden she couldn't quite see in the darkness. Her clothes were already there, folded neatly on the dresser. Someone had even grabbed her toothbrush. The attention to detail was almost more unsettling than the invasion itself. She locked the door anyway, knowing it was pointless, and lay down on the bed fully dressed. Sleep seemed impossible. Her mind kept replaying the moment Adrian had said someone tried to break into her apartment. 2 men, sent by people who thought she was someone else. Someone dead. She must have dozed off eventually because she woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came crashing back. Lena found Adrian in the kitchen, reading something on his phone while a French press sat steaming on the counter. He looked up when she entered. "Coffee?" "Please." He poured her a cup with the same precise movements he seemed to apply to everything. She noticed he took his black. She added cream from a container that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Not really." "Understandable." They drank in silence for a moment. Then Lena asked the question that had been eating at her since last night. "The men who tried to break in, what happened to them?" "They're being questioned." "By who?" People who are very good at getting answers. You mean tortured? Adrian set down his cup. I mean questioned. If they choose to make it difficult, that's their decision. That's not how it works. In your world, maybe. In mine, it's exactly how it works. She wanted to be horrified, wanted to feel the moral outrage that any decent person should feel, but all she could think about was those two men standing outside her apartment, trying to get in, planning to do things she didn't want to imagine. Have they said anything? She asked quietly. Not yet, but they will. Victor appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. He said something in a language Lena didn't recognize, Russian, maybe, and Adrian's jaw tightened. When? Adrian asked in English. 20 minutes ago. Show me. Victor pulled out a tablet and handed it over. Lena couldn't see the screen from where she sat, but she watched Adrian's face shift from controlled calm to something colder. Problem? She asked. Adrian turned the tablet toward her. The image showed her apartment building. Nothing unusual at first glance. Then she saw it. The dark scorch marks around her apartment window. The broken glass. The curtains that had been white yesterday and were now streaked with black. Someone firebombed your apartment, Adrian said. 4 a.m. No casualties. Your neighbors got out safely. The coffee cup slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor and shattered, ceramic shards scattering across the concrete. Neither of them moved to clean it up. They knew I wasn't there, Lena whispered. They knew, and they did it anyway. They were sending a message. What message? That they're willing to kill innocent people? That they're serious, that they won't stop until they find what they're looking for. Lena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the counter, trying to steady herself. This is because of you, because you interfered. If you just left me alone, you'd be dead in that apartment right now, along with everyone else in the building. The certainty in his voice cut through her rising panic. They would have come for you eventually, Adrian continued, with or without my involvement. The only difference is that now you have a chance. A chance at what? Living in hiding forever? A chance at making them pay for their mistake. There was something in the way he said it that made her look up. His expression hadn't changed, but his eyes held a promise that was almost tangible. You want revenge, she said. I want resolution. There's a difference. Is there? Revenge is emotional, messy. Resolution is clean, permanent, and far more satisfying. Victor cleared his throat. Adrian glanced at him, and some silent communication passed between them. I need to take care of something, Adrian said to Lena. Victor will stay with you. Don't leave the house. Where are you going? To have a conversation with someone who might have answers. I'm coming with you. No. It's my life they're threatening. Which is exactly why you're staying here. He moved closer, and Lena found herself backed against the counter. He wasn't touching her, but she could feel the heat of him, the controlled intensity that radiated off him like a physical force. You think you want to see how these conversations happen? You don't. Trust me on that. I don't trust you at all. Smart. But you will. He left before she could respond. Victor remained in the doorway, silent and immovable. Lena looked at the broken coffee cup on the floor, at the tablet still showing her destroyed apartment, at the life she'd known going up in flames, both literally and figuratively. Can I at least clean this up? She asked. Victor nodded. He even brought her a broom. The hours that followed were the longest of Lena's life. She tried to watch TV, but couldn't focus. Tried to read a book she found on a shelf, but the words blurred together. Mostly she paced, moving from room to room in Adrian's sterile house, trying not to think about what kind of conversation involved the certainty she'd heard in his voice. Victor followed at a distance, never intrusive but always present. Around noon he made her lunch, a sandwich that was surprisingly good for something assembled by a man who looked like he crushed skulls for a living. How long have you worked for him? Lena asked. Victor considered the question. 7 years. Is he always like this? Like what? So, certain about everything. Mr. Voss doesn't do uncertainty. It's a luxury he can't afford. That sounds exhausting. It keeps him alive. Lena ate her sandwich and wondered what kind of life required that level of constant vigilance, wondered what Adrian had done to earn it. He returned just after 3. She heard the car first, then voices in the entryway. When she came downstairs, Adrian was washing blood off his hands in the kitchen sink. "Are you hurt?" The question came out before she could stop it. "No." "Then who's—" Someone who had answers I needed. He dried his hands on a towel and turned to face her. There was a spot of blood on his collar that he hadn't noticed yet. Lena found herself staring at it, this small imperfection in his otherwise controlled appearance. "What did you find out?" she asked. "The contract on Marcus Liu's daughter came from a man named Vincent Zhao. He runs trafficking operations out of the Port District. Marcus stole from him. Specifically, he stole a ledger containing enough evidence to put Zhao away for 3 consecutive life sentences. And he thinks I have it. He thought Marcus gave it to his daughter before she died. When he learned there was a Lena Park working nights in the same neighborhood Marcus used to operate in, he made assumptions. Wrong assumptions. Very wrong. But Zhao isn't the type to admit mistakes. He'll keep coming until he's satisfied you don't have what he wants." Lena sank into a chair. "So what do we do?" "We give him proof." "What proof?" "I don't have anything." Adrian pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It was a ledger, old, leather-bound, the kind of thing that belonged in a museum. "This is what Marcus stole. I had my people recover it from where he'd hidden it. How did you go—" The man I questioned this afternoon was very cooperative once he understood his options. "Marcus left the ledger in a storage unit downtown. We retrieved it 2 hours ago." "And now you're going to give it to Zhao?" "No, now I'm going to use it as leverage to make him leave you alone permanently." There was that certainty again. Like the universe would bend to his will simply because he decided it should. "What if he doesn't care about leverage?" Lena asked. "What if he just wants me dead anyway?" "Then I'll kill him first." He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather, like taking another person's life was just another item on his to-do list. "You can't just—" "I can. I have. And I will again if necessary. That's the world you're in now, Miss Park. The sooner you accept that, the easier this becomes." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that there had to be another way. But she'd seen her apartment in flames, seen the blood on his hands, seen the cold calculation in his eyes when he talked about resolution. This was who he was. And right now he was all that stood between her and people who wanted her dead for a mistake that wasn't even hers. "When?" she asked. "When what?" "When do you give him the ledger?" "Tonight. There's a meet already arranged. Zhao thinks he's buying information about your location. Instead, he's going to get a very different offer. I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." "You said it yourself. I'm already in this world. Might as well see how it works." Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger, almost human. "You're braver than you look, Miss Park. Or stupider. Sometimes there's not much difference." He glanced at Victor, who'd been standing silent through the whole exchange. "Get her something appropriate to wear. And a vest." "A vest?" Lena repeated. "Bulletproof. Just in case." "Oh, good. That makes me feel so much better." But she didn't argue when Victor led her upstairs to find clothes that wouldn't immediately mark her as someone who didn't belong in whatever world they were about to enter. An hour later, she found herself dressed in black jeans and a fitted jacket that somehow made her look older, sharper. The bulletproof vest underneath was surprisingly light, though knowing what it was for made her stomach churn. Adrian appeared in the doorway, dressed similarly. He changed his blood-stained shirt for a fresh one. "Ready?" "No." "Good answer. The drive to the port district took 40 minutes. Lena watched the city transform outside the window, the polished streets of Adrian's neighborhood giving way to industrial blocks, abandoned warehouses, streets where the lights worked only half the time. "This is where Marcus operated," Adrian said, following her gaze, "before he made his mistake." What was his mistake, besides stealing from a trafficker? He thought he was smarter than he actually was, thought he could leverage information for a better life. Instead, he got his daughter killed and ended his own life in hiding. "How do you know he's dead?" "Because if he wasn't, he would have come for the ledger by now. Some things are worth more than survival." The car pulled into what looked like an abandoned shipping facility. Rusted containers stacked like forgotten Legos, concrete cracked and sprouting weeds, the smell of salt water and decay. 3 other cars were already there. "Stay close to Victor," Adrian said. "If shooting starts, he'll get you out." "If shooting starts, we're all going to die." "Probably. But let's try to avoid that." He got out of the car with a calm that seemed almost meditative. Lena followed on shaking legs, Victor a solid presence at her back. The men waiting by the other cars were exactly what she'd imagined. Hard faces, expensive suits that didn't quite hide the weapons underneath, eyes that tracked movement like predators. One man stepped forward, older, maybe 60, with silver hair and a face that had seen too much sun. "Vincent Zhao." "You brought a guest," Zhao said, his accent faint but present. "How unexpected." "This is Lena Park," Adrian said, "the woman you've been trying to kill." Zhao's expression didn't change. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Of course you don't. Just like you have no idea about the 2 men who tried to break into her apartment, or the firebomb that destroyed it, or the contract you put out on Marcus Liu's daughter. Marcus Liu's daughter is dead." "Yes, she is. This isn't her." For the first time, Zhao looked at Lena directly. She forced herself to meet his gaze, to not flinch under the weight of it. "Then why are you here?" Zhao asked. "Because you made a mistake, and mistakes have consequences." Adrian pulled the ledger from inside his jacket. Even in the dim light, Lena could see Zhao's eyes widen fractionally. "You're going to listen very carefully," Adrian said. "This ledger contains everything Marcus stole from you. Names, dates, routes, payments, enough to bury you and everyone in your organization. I could give it to the feds. I could sell it to your competitors. Or I could burn it right now and we all walk away. What do you want?" "You leave her alone, permanently. You call off whoever you've sent after her. You spread the word that Lena Park is untouchable. You do this, and the ledger disappears. And if I refuse, then tomorrow morning, every federal agency in the state wakes up to a very interesting package, and the morning after that, you wake up to me standing over your bed. If you wake up at all." The silence that followed was absolute. Zhao looked at the ledger, at Adrian, at the men flanking him who'd all tensed imperceptibly. Lena could feel the violence coiled in the air, ready to spring at the slightest provocation. "How do I know this is real?" Zhao asked finally. Adrian opened the ledger and read a date, a location, a series of names. With each word, Zhao's expression grew darker. "Satisfied? You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to be smart. You made a mistake. I'm offering you a way to fix it that doesn't end with either of us dead. That's more generosity than most people would show." Another long silence. Then Zhao nodded slowly. "The girl is yours. I'll pass the word. See that you do, because if anything happens to her, anything at all, this arrangement ends, and I promise you, Vincent, you don't want to see how it ends." Zhao's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He gestured to his men, and they retreated to their cars without another word. Lena didn't breathe properly until they were pulling away from the shipping facility. "That's it?" she asked. "He just agreed?" "He agreed because he's smart enough to know when he's outplayed." What if he changes his mind? He won't. Men like Zhao understand consequences. I just showed him exactly what his would be. She looked at the ledger, still in Adrian's hands. What are you going to do with it? Keep it. Insurance, in case Zhao forgets our agreement. You're not going to destroy it? Would you, if you were me? She wouldn't. She knew that with sudden, uncomfortable certainty. In his position, with his life, holding on to leverage was just survival. Thank you, she said quietly. Adrian glanced at her, something unreadable in his expression. Don't thank me yet. This solves one problem. It doesn't solve the larger issue. What larger issue? You've seen my world now. You know what I am, what I do. You can't unsee that. Can't go back to your old life and pretend none of this happened. So what am I supposed to do? That's what we're going to figure out. They drove back through the city in silence. Lena watched the streets transform again, industrial giving way to residential, darkness to light. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was moving in the wrong direction, that the light was behind her now. When they reached Adrian's house, he walked her inside but didn't follow her upstairs. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow, we'll talk about what comes next. But Lena didn't go upstairs. She stood in the middle of his pristine living room and said, I don't want to go back. Adrian turned. What? To my old life. The cafe, the data entry, the apartment. If I even still have one. I don't want to go back to being invisible. Miss Park. Lena. Just Lena. He studied her for a long moment. You don't know what you're asking for. Maybe not. But I know what I don't want. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering if the next person I meet is going to be another mistake waiting to happen. So what do you want? She didn't have a good answer for that. Didn't have words for the thing that had been building in her chest since the moment he'd confronted David Chen, since he'd walked her to her car, since he'd stood in that shipping facility and made a man like Vincent Zhao back down. I want to not be afraid, she said finally. Fear keeps you alive. No, fear keeps you breathing. There's a difference. Adrian smiled that rare smile again. You're going to be trouble, aren't you? Probably. Good. I hate being bored. He crossed the space between them and Lena's breath caught. He was close enough now that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes, could smell whatever expensive cologne he wore. If you stay, he said quietly, everything changes. You understand that? I understand. You'll be mine to protect, mine to worry about. Mine. The possessiveness in that last word should have terrified her. Instead, it sent heat coiling through her stomach. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Yes. Adrian reached up and traced her jaw with one finger, the touch so light she almost imagined it. Then welcome to the deep end, Lena Park. Try not to drown. He stepped back before she could respond, that careful control sliding back into place. Tomorrow, he said. We start tomorrow. This time, when Lena climbed the stairs, she didn't lock her door. Tomorrow came with coffee and consequences. Lena woke to find Adrian already in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, speaking that same clipped Russian she'd heard Victor use. He looked like he hadn't slept. Same clothes from last night, hair slightly disheveled in a way that made him look almost human. He ended the call when he saw her. Problem? She asked. Always. He poured her coffee without asking, remembered the cream. Small gesture, but it settled something in her chest. She kept his word. The contract's been pulled, but word travels fast in certain circles. What does that mean? It means people are asking questions. About you, about why I intervened, about what you mean to me. What do I mean to you? Adrian's expression shifted, became something she couldn't quite read. That's what we need to figure out. Victor appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Sir, there's a situation. There's always a situation. This one requires your immediate attention. Adrian took the tablet, his jaw tightening as he scrolled. How many? 4 that we know of. Could be more. Where? The usual place. Some silent communication passed between them. Adrian handed back the tablet and looked at Lena. I need to handle something. You're staying here with Victor. We've done this dance before. It didn't work then either. This isn't negotiable. Then unnegotiate it. You said yesterday I was in this world now. You can't keep shutting me out when it gets uncomfortable. This isn't about discomfort. This is about keeping you alive. By hiding me? That worked so well with my apartment. Adrian's control cracked just slightly. 4 of my people were ambushed last night. 2 are dead. The other 2 won't make it through the day. So forgive me if I'm not eager to add you to that list. The words hit like cold water. Lena set down her coffee cup carefully. Who? Does it matter? It does if it's connected to me. Everything's connected to you now. That's the problem. He grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair. Victor was already moving toward the door. Adrian, Lena said. He stopped but didn't turn. Be careful. Careful's what got my people killed. Then he was gone. Lena stood in the kitchen, listening to the car pull away, feeling the weight of what he'd said settle over her like a shroud. 2 people dead. 2 more dying. Because of her. Because Adrian had decided she was worth protecting. She'd wanted to not be invisible. Turned out visibility had a price. The day dragged. Victor stayed close but silent, occasionally checking his phone, his expression growing darker with each message. Around noon, Lena couldn't take it anymore. Tell me what's happening. Victor looked up from his phone. Nothing you need to worry about. People are dying. I think I need to worry about that. People die in this business. It's not personal. Adrian made it personal when he decided to protect me. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, the men who were killed last night were guarding one of Mr. Voss's warehouses. Someone knew they'd be there, knew exactly when and how many. This wasn't random. You think there's a leak? I know there's a leak. What I don't know is who. The implications of that settled between them. Someone in Adrian's organization had betrayed him, had gotten people killed doing it. What will he do? Lena asked. When he finds out who it is? What he always does. What has to be done? The certainty in Victor's voice reminded her of Adrian. Like violence was just physics. Inevitable. Clean. She wondered if she'd start thinking like that too, given enough time. Adrian returned just before dark, blood on his knuckles and something cold in his eyes that hadn't been there this morning. He went straight to the bathroom without speaking. Lena heard water running, heard the sharp intake of breath that suggested pain. She gave him 10 minutes. Then she went upstairs. The bathroom door was open. Adrian stood at the sink, examining a cut on his cheekbone in the mirror. His shirt was off, revealing the kind of body that came from necessity rather than vanity. Lean muscle, old scars, new bruises already forming. You should see the other guy, he said without looking at her. Is he alive? Not anymore. Lena stepped into the bathroom. Let me help. I'm fine. You're bleeding. That's not fine. She found a first aid kit under the sink. Of course he had one. Of course it was fully stocked. And pulled out antiseptic and gauze. Adrian watched her in the mirror, his expression unreadable. Sit, she said. Bossy. You have no idea. He sat on the edge of the tub. Lena dampened a cloth and carefully cleaned the cut on his cheek. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the weight he carried that had nothing to do with muscle. Did you find them? She asked quietly. The people who betrayed you? Yes. All of them? The ones that mattered. His hands were resting on his knees. Lena saw the split knuckles, the scraped skin. She took one hand and started cleaning it with the same careful attention. You don't have to do this, Adrian said. I know. Most people would be running by now, after everything you've seen. I'm not most people. No, you're not. There was something in the way he said it that made her look up. Their faces were inches apart. She could see gold flecks in his gray eyes she'd never noticed before. Could see the exact moment his control started slipping. "Lena," he said, and her name sounded different in his mouth, like a warning and a question at the same time. "Yeah? If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back." "Good. I'm tired of going back." He kissed her like a man drowning, desperate, fierce, all that careful control shattering into something raw and real. Lena's fingers tangled in his hair, tasting blood and antiseptic and something that was purely him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "This is a mistake," he said. "Probably. I'm not a good man, Lena. I've done things that would make you sick if you knew." "Then don't tell me." "Not yet. You deserve better than this. Better than me." She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "Stop deciding what I deserve. That's my choice to make." Something in his expression cracked. He pulled her back into a kiss that was somehow softer, more deliberate, like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth. They didn't make it to the bedroom. Later, lying on his bed with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, Lena traced the scar on his ribs, old, jagged, the kind that came from a blade rather than surgery. "Knife fight," Adrian said quietly. 5 years ago. I was younger, stupider, thought I was untouchable. What changed your mind?" "Waking up in a hospital, wondering if I'd see another sunrise." "Did it scare you, almost dying?" "No. What scared me was realizing how much I wanted to live." He turned to face her, his hand finding the curve of her waist. "That's what you need to understand about this life. It's not the violence that gets you. It's caring about something enough that losing it becomes unbearable." "Is that what I am? Something you can't bear to lose?" "You're becoming that, yes." The honesty in his voice made her chest tight. "That terrifies you." "More than you know." She kissed him again, slower this time, trying to communicate something she didn't have words for. When she pulled back, his eyes had that softness she was starting to recognize, the one he tried so hard to hide. "Stay with me tonight," he said. "I wasn't planning on leaving." "I mean here, in this bed. I sleep better when—" He stopped, like admitting it cost him something. "When what?" "When I'm not alone." Lena settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling the rise and fall of his breathing. "Then you're not alone anymore." She felt him relax just slightly, felt the tension that seemed permanently carved into his shoulders ease a fraction. They didn't talk about what it meant, didn't put labels on what was happening between them. But when Lena woke in the middle of the night to find Adrian's arm around her waist, his face buried in her hair, she understood. This was real, and real meant dangerous in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. The next 3 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt almost normal if you ignored the armed guards and the occasional bloodstain. Lena learned the layout of Adrian's world, the legitimate businesses that fronted the illegitimate ones, the people who answered to him, the delicate balance of power that kept everything from collapsing into chaos. She met his inner circle, Marcus, who handled logistics with the precision of a surgeon. Yuri, who managed the financial operations and had a laugh that didn't match his body count. Diana, who ran security and looked at Lena like she was a problem that needed solving. "She doesn't trust me," Lena said one night after Diana had given her another assessing stare. "She doesn't trust anyone," Adrian replied. "It's why she's still alive." "Does she know? About us?" "Everyone knows? You think we're subtle?" They weren't. Adrian touched her constantly now, a hand on her lower back, fingers lacing through hers, that possessive way he pulled her close in rooms full of dangerous people. Claiming her, making it clear she was his. Lena should have hated it, the caveman possessiveness, the way he made decisions about her safety without asking. Instead, she found herself leaning into it, into him. Maybe that made her weak, or maybe it just made her human. The attack came on a Tuesday. Lena was leaving a boutique. Adrian had insisted she needed clothes that fit his world, had sent her with Diana and 3 guards who followed at a discreet distance. She'd just stepped onto the sidewalk when the van screeched to a halt. 3 men poured out. Diana moved fast, putting herself between Lena and the threat. "Get back inside!" But Lena froze. Classic mistake. The kind that got people killed. One of the guards went down first, blood spraying from his throat. Diana fired twice, dropped one attacker, spun to engage another. The 3rd man lunged for Lena. She tried to run. His hand caught her hair, yanked her backward. Pain exploded across her scalp. She heard Diana shouting, heard gunfire, heard the scream that took her a second to realize was her own. Then the man holding her jerked and dropped. Victor stood behind him, gun still raised, his expression flat. "Move," he said. Diana grabbed Lena's arm and hauled her toward the waiting car. More gunfire, someone was screaming, one of the attackers, hit but not dead. Victor finished what he'd started with brutal efficiency. They were 3 blocks away before Lena's hand stopped shaking enough to speak. "How did you know?" she asked. "We didn't," Diana said. Her voice was tight. "But Mr. Voss has had extra security on you since the warehouse hit." He was right to. "Who were they?" "We'll find out." They found out within an hour. The surviving attacker, bleeding, terrified, told Adrian everything he wanted to know before he died. Lena wasn't there for the questioning, but she saw Adrian when he came home, saw the blood that wasn't his, saw something in his eyes that looked like barely controlled rage. "Zhao?" she asked. "No, someone else, someone who thinks taking you will make me weak." "Will it?" He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms hard enough to hurt. "Yes, and that's the problem." She could feel him shaking. This man who faced down armed men without flinching was shaking because she'd almost been taken. "I'm okay," she said against his chest. "You almost weren't. 3 seconds slower and you'd be gone. Do you understand that? 3 seconds." "Adrian, I can't do this." He pulled back, his hands gripping her shoulders. "I can't lose you. I won't survive it." "You won't lose me." "You don't know that. No one knows that. This world, it takes everything, everyone. It's just a matter of time." Lena grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Then we make the most of the time we have. That's all anyone gets anyway." "That's not enough." "It has to be." He kissed her like the world was ending. Maybe it was. In his world, endings came fast and violent and without warning. When he finally pulled back, his eyes had that cold calculation she recognized. He was making a decision. She could see the wheels turning. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That there's only one way to make you truly untouchable." "What way?" He dropped to one knee right there in the middle of his living room, pulled a ring from his pocket, where the hell had that come from, and looked up at her with an expression that was half desperation, half determination. "Marry me." Lena's brain short-circuited. "What?" "Marry me. Tomorrow, today, right now. I don't care. But marry me." "Adrian, this is insane. You're in danger every second. You're just my girlfriend. But as my wife? That changes everything. Every family, every organization, every 2-bit crew in this city will know that touching you means war. Total war. The kind nobody walks away from." "You're asking me to marry you for protection?" "No, I'm asking you to marry me because I love you, and I'm terrified of losing you, and I need to do everything in my power to keep you safe. The protection is just a bonus." He loved her. He'd said it, just thrown it out there like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Lena's knees gave out. She ended up kneeling too, face to face with this impossible man who'd turned her life upside down and inside out. "Say that again," she whispered. "I love you. You barely know me. I know you stayed when anyone sensible would have run." I know you clean my wounds and don't flinch at the blood. I know you look at me like I'm more than what I do, like I'm someone worth saving. You are. Then save me. Marry me. Choose this. Choose us. The ring caught the light, a single diamond, simple and elegant and probably worth more than her entire former life. But it wasn't the ring that made her decision. It was the way he was looking at her, like she was air and he was drowning. Yes, she said. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you, but not for protection. Then why? Because somewhere between you threatening me in a bar and proposing on your living room floor, I fell in love with you too, and I'm tired of being scared of what that means. Adrian kissed her hard, the ring forgotten between them. When they finally broke apart, he slid it onto her finger with shaking hands. 24 hours, he said. I'll make the arrangements. Adrian, people need more than 24 hours to plan a wedding. This isn't about the wedding. This is about making you mine before anyone else gets a chance to take you. There was that possessiveness again, but now Lena understood it for what it really was. Fear. The only kind of fear Adrian Voss allowed himself. Fear of losing her. Okay, she said. 24 hours. He stood and pulled her up with him. I need to make some calls. Spread the word. Make sure everyone knows what this means. What does it mean? It means you just became the most protected woman in the city, and anyone who tries to hurt you will be making the last mistake of their life. He kissed her once more, gentle this time, like she was something precious. Then he disappeared into his office, phone already to his ear. Lena stood alone in the living room, looking at the ring on her finger, trying to process the fact that she'd just agreed to marry a crime boss after knowing him less than a month. Her mother would have had a stroke, but her mother had died 3 years ago, and Lena had been alone ever since. Invisible, forgotten, not anymore. Diana found her an hour later, still standing in the same spot. Congratulations, she said. Her tone suggested she wasn't sure if congratulations were appropriate. Thanks. You know what you're getting into? Not even a little bit. Good. People who think they understand this life are the ones who end up dead. Diana studied her for a moment. He really loves you. I wasn't sure at first. Thought maybe you were just a distraction. But the way he looked when Victor called about the attack? I've never seen him like that. Scared? Human. The word hung between them. He's going to make enemies with this, Diana continued. Marriage means merger in this world. It means alliances shift, power structures change. Some people won't like it. Some people like Zhao? Zhao's the least of your worries now. He's smart enough to know when a fight's not worth having, but there are others, younger, hungrier, stupider. What do I do about them? You survive. You watch your back. And you trust that Adrian will burn down the entire city before he lets anyone touch you. It should have sounded extreme. Instead, it sounded like a promise. The wedding happened in a courthouse the next day at noon. No guests except Victor and Diana as witnesses. No flowers, no music, no white dress. Just Lena in a simple gray dress Adrian had bought her, and Adrian in another one of his perfect suits, and a judge who didn't ask questions about why they were in such a hurry. The ceremony took 7 minutes. When the judge said she could kiss her husband, Adrian pulled her close and kissed her like he was sealing a contract written in blood. Maybe he was. They signed papers. Diana handed over rings, matching bands, simple, elegant. Adrian slid hers on with steady hands. Mine, he said quietly. Not a question. A statement of fact. Yours, Lena agreed. Outside the courthouse, Victor had the car waiting. Adrian's phone was already buzzing with messages, word traveling fast through whatever networks he operated in. Congratulations, Victor said. Coming from him, it sounded almost warm. Thanks for not talking me out of it, Adrian replied. Would it have worked if I tried? No. They drove to a restaurant Lena had never heard of, the kind where you needed reservations 6 months in advance and probably a security clearance. Adrian had apparently called in favors. The entire place was empty, except for them. "This is our wedding reception?" Lena asked. "This is lunch. The reception comes later." "Later when?" "When it's safe to have one." Right, because even their wedding day came with threat assessments. They ate food Lena couldn't properly appreciate because her mind kept spinning. She was married to Adrian Voss, a man she'd known for less than a month, a man who'd killed people, a man who loved her enough to make enemies to keep her safe. "You're thinking too hard," Adrian said. "I just married a crime boss. I think I'm entitled to think hard." "Any regrets?" She looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who'd saved her life, who'd protected her when he had no reason to, who'd proposed on his knees because he was terrified of losing her. Not one. His smile was worth every impossible choice that had led her here. They spent the rest of the day in his house, their house now, she supposed. Adrian made calls, arranged meetings, sent messages that would ripple through his world like stones in water. Lena watched him work, saw the machine of his organization adjust to this new reality. By nightfall, everyone who mattered knew. Lena Park was now Lena Voss, untouchable, protected by a man who didn't bluff when he made threats. "How many people do you think will test it?" Lena asked as they got ready for bed. "At least one. There's always someone who thinks they're smarter than they are." "What happens when they do?" Adrian pulled her close, his arms solid around her. "I make an example that ensures no one else is that stupid." She should be horrified, should pull away from the casual violence in his voice. Instead, she held him tighter, because this was her world now, her choice, her husband, and she'd protect him just as fiercely as he protected her, even if she didn't know how yet. They made love that night like people who knew how fragile everything was. Slow, deliberate, memorizing each other in case tomorrow brought the violence they both knew was coming. Because in Adrian's world, violence was always coming. It was just a matter of when. The violence came 6 days later, but not from the direction they'd expected. Lena was in the kitchen making coffee when Victor burst through the door, his usually calm expression replaced by something close to panic. "Where's Adrian?" "Upstairs." "Why?" "Get him. Now." The tone left no room for questions. Lena ran upstairs, found Adrian in his office already standing, phone in hand, jaw tight. "I know," he said before she could speak. "Victor just texted me." "What's happening?" "My brother." Lena blinked. "You have a brother?" "Had. Legally speaking, he's been dead for 3 years. And illegally speaking? He just landed at the airport with 12 men and a grudge. They went downstairs together. Victor had his tablet out, showing security footage of a man who looked like a harder, meaner version of Adrian stepping off a private plane. Same height, same build, but where Adrian was controlled precision, this man radiated barely contained violence. "Victor Voss," Adrian said quietly. "My older brother." "I thought you said he was dead." "He was supposed to be. I paid a lot of money to make sure of it." Something in his tone made Lena's blood run cold. "What did you do?" "What I had to." Victor didn't just cross lines, he erased them. Trafficking operations that made Zhao look like a street dealer. Protection rackets that burned neighborhoods to the ground. He was going to destroy everything our father built, so I made a choice. "You exiled him." "I tried to kill him. He survived. I settled for buying off everyone who might tell him where I was. Clearly, I didn't pay enough." Diana appeared in the doorway, already armed. "He's headed to the waterfront, making noise about reclaiming what's his." "Everything's his, according to Victor," Adrian said. "He's the firstborn. Traditional succession should have given him the organization. The fact that I took it instead is an insult he's spent 3 years nurturing." "What does he want?" Lena asked. Adrian looked at her, something bleak in his eyes. "Everything I have, including you." The words settled like ice in her stomach. "He doesn't know about the marriage," Victor said. We kept it quiet outside our immediate circle. If he did, he'd already be here. Then we use that, Diana said. Let him think she's just a girlfriend, someone he can leverage. No, Adrian's voice was flat. We're not hiding what she is. That's how this started, with secrets and half measures. Victor's going to find out anyway. Better he hears it from me. That's a mistake, Diana argued. You know what he'll do. I know exactly what he'll do, which is why we're going to be ready for it. Adrian turned to Lena. I need you to understand something. Victor isn't like the people you've met so far. So the men who tried to take you, they're professionals. They have codes, however twisted. Victor doesn't have codes. He has appetites. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared, because the moment he learns you exist, learns what you mean to me, he's going to come for you with everything he has. Then what do? We go to him first, on our terms, in front of witnesses who matter. Victor's expression suggested he thought this was a terrible idea. Diana looked like she agreed, but neither of them argued. Adrian made calls, arrangements were set in motion with the efficiency of a military operation. By noon, a meeting was scheduled at a neutral location, a restaurant owned by an old family that held no allegiance to either brother. They'll keep guns out of it, Adrian explained as they drove, but that doesn't mean it'll be safe. Lena rode in the back seat, Victor driving, Adrian beside her with his hand on her knee. The gesture was possessive, protective, and probably unconscious. Tell me about him, she said. About Victor. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. We had the same father, different mothers. His mother was the legitimate wife. Mine was the mistress who got elevated when the wife died. Victor never forgave me for existing. That's not your fault. In his mind, everything is my fault. I'm younger, illegitimate by birth, and I took what should have been his because our father saw what Victor really was. Someone who'd burn the entire empire for the pleasure of watching it burn. Why come back now? Because 3 years is long enough to plan, long enough to build resources, long enough to convince himself he's ready for war. The restaurant came into view, elegant, old money, the kind of place that had survived decades by knowing when to look the other way. They were expected. The owner himself greeted them at the door, his expression carefully neutral. Mr. Voss, your party is waiting. Adrian kept Lena close as they walked through the empty dining room. Victor sat at a large table in the back, his 12 men arranged around him like a court. He stood when Adrian approached. For a moment, the brothers just looked at each other. Then Victor smiled. Little brother, you've been busy. Victor, I'd say it's good to see you, but we both know that's not true. No love lost, then. Good. I hate pretense. Victor's eyes slid to Lena. And who's this, your latest toy? My wife. The word dropped like a bomb. Victor's smile didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Wife. How domestic. I didn't know you had it in you to commit to anything that didn't come with a profit margin. There's a lot you don't know about me anymore. Clearly, Victor moved closer. One of his men started to follow, but Victor waved him off. He circled Lena slowly, assessing. She's pretty. Bit plain for someone with your resources, but I suppose that's the appeal. Something pure to corrupt. Careful, Adrian said quietly. Or what? You'll exile me again? Kill me this time? We both know you don't have the spine for it, Adrian. You never did. That's why Father chose you, because you could be controlled. Father chose me because I understood that power without restraint is just destruction. You never learned that lesson. But restraint is weakness, and weakness gets you killed. Victor turned his attention back to Lena. Tell me, Mrs. Voss, do you know what your husband did to earn his throne? The bodies he buried? The people he betrayed? I know enough, Lena said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. Do you? Did he tell you about the fire in the South District? 47 people dead because he wanted to make a point about territory? Did he mention the families he's destroyed? The children who lost parents because Daddy Dearest crossed the wrong line. That's enough, Adrian said. Is it? I'm just getting started. Victor leaned closer to Lena. Here's what's going to happen, sweetheart. Adrian's going to step aside and give me back what's mine. And you're going to come with me as insurance that he doesn't try anything stupid. Adrian moved fast. 1 second he was standing beside Lena, the next he had Victor by the throat, slammed against the nearest wall. Victor's men reached for weapons. Victor and Diana drew faster. The restaurant owner appeared from nowhere. Gentlemen, you agreed to the rules. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Adrian released Victor and stepped back. Victor rubbed his throat, still smiling. There he is. The killer underneath the suit. I was starting to think exile had neutered you. I gave you a chance to disappear, Adrian said, to build a life somewhere else. You should have taken it. And let you keep everything? Our father's empire, his respect, his name? You stole my birthright, Adrian. I'm here to take it back. The organization chose me. Every captain, every family, they all voted. They voted for stability, for the safe choice. But stability is boring, and I'm going to show them what real power looks like. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Lena felt him tense. If you move against me, it won't be a quiet transfer of power. It'll be war. I'm counting on it. People will die. People die anyway. At least this way it'll mean something. There was no reasoning with him. Lena could see it in Victor's eyes. The same cold certainty she'd seen in Adrian, but without the control. Without the conscience. You have 48 hours, Victor said. Step down voluntarily, and I'll let you and your pretty wife leave the city alive. Refuse, and I'll take everything from you piece by piece, starting with her. Adrian's hand found Lena's. Touch her, and I'll kill everyone you've ever cared about, everyone you've ever spoken to. I'll burn your life down so thoroughly that people will forget you ever existed. Bold words for someone who's already lost. We'll see. The brothers stared at each other for another long moment. Then Victor gestured to his men, and they filed out of the restaurant without another word. When they were gone, Adrian sagged slightly. Lena had never seen him look tired before. That went well, Victor said dryly. About as expected. Adrian turned to Lena. I'm sorry you had to hear that. About the fire. Did you do it? Kill those people? Yes. The honesty was almost worse than a lie would have been. Why? Because the alternative was letting a rival organization establish a foothold that would have gotten hundreds more killed in the long run. I made a choice, a terrible one, but I made it. Lena wanted to be horrified, wanted to pull away from this man who'd just admitted to mass murder, but she'd asked for the truth and he'd given it to her. What do we do now? She asked instead. We prepare for war. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Adrian called in every favor he had, reached out to every family that owed him loyalty, made it clear that choosing Victor meant choosing destruction. Some listened. Others stayed neutral, waiting to see which brother would come out on top. A few chose Victor. He's offering them more, Diana explained, showing Lena a ledger of defections. Better territories, higher percentages, less oversight. Everything Adrian won't give them because he knows it's unsustainable. Will it be enough for Victor to win? Depends on how many people value short-term gain over long-term survival. Lena spent most of those 2 days in Adrian's office, watching him work. She'd known he was powerful, had seen glimpses of what he controlled, but this was different. This was seeing the full scope of the machine he'd built, the legitimate businesses that funded the illegitimate ones, the political connections that kept law enforcement at bay, the network of loyalty and fear that held everything together. Victor wanted to take all of it, and he might actually succeed. Talk to me, Lena said on the second night. They were alone in his office. Everyone else having been sent home to prepare for whatever was coming. About what? About what you're thinking. You've barely slept. You're running scenarios in your head. Share them with me. Adrian looked up from the papers spread across his desk. I'm thinking that I might lose, that Victor might actually pull this off. Do you believe that? I believe he's willing to go further than I am. And in this world, that often matters more than being right. What happens if you lose? We run. New city, new identities, new life. I have resources Victor doesn't know about. We'd survive. And everyone who chose you over him? Adrian's expression went dark. Victor would make examples of them, show that loyalty to me was a fatal mistake. So we can't lose. No, we can't. Lena crossed the office and took his hand. Then we won't. Tell me what you need. I need you safe. That's all that matters. Wrong answer. You need me as a partner. So tell me what I can do. He studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out a folder. There are 3 families still undecided. They're waiting to see which way the wind blows. If we can secure their loyalty before Victor makes his move, we tilt the odds significantly in our favor. What would secure their loyalty? Showing them that I'm not the same man Victor thinks I am, that I've evolved beyond our father's methods. How do we show them that? By offering them something Victor can't, partnership instead of subordination, a voice instead of orders. You think that'll work? It's worked for 3 years, but Victor's return makes them question everything. They're wondering if I'm still strong enough to protect them. Then we prove you are. Adrian's smile was tired but genuine. When did you become a strategist? When I married one. They spent the next 6 hours crafting offers to the 3 families. Proposals that were generous without being desperate. Promises backed by resources Victor couldn't match. By dawn, 2 of the 3 had accepted. The third asked for a meeting. That's trouble, Victor said when Adrian told him. The Kozlov family doesn't do meetings. They do ambushes. Maybe, but we don't have a choice. The meeting was set for a warehouse in the industrial district. Neutral ground, supposedly. Adrian brought Victor and Diana. Lena insisted on coming despite every argument against it. You're my wife, Adrian said. That makes you a target Victor will use. Staying visible, staying strong, that matters. But if something goes wrong, we handle it together. They arrived to find the Kozlov family already there. 3 generations of quiet power that had survived every regime change by knowing when to bend and when to break. The patriarch, Alexei, sat in a chair that looked like a throne, his sons flanking him. Mr. Voss, Alexei said. His accent was thick, unchanged by decades in America. You bring your bride to business. Interesting choice. My wife is part of my business now. Anything discussed here, she hears. And if we find that unacceptable, then we're wasting each other's time. Alexei's laugh was harsh. Your father would have shot me for less. You offer compromises. Victor says this makes you weak. Victor says a lot of things. Most of them are designed to get him what he wants, not what's true. Perhaps. But he makes good points. The organization has grown soft under your leadership. Profitable, yes, but soft. Soft means people aren't dying in the streets. Soft means law enforcement looks the other way because we're not giving them reasons to look closer. Soft means we survive long enough to actually enjoy what we've built. Pretty words. But Victor offers more. Better territories. Higher percentages. Victor offers chaos. He'll give you what you want until he doesn't need you anymore. Then he'll take it back and dare you to complain. Alexei was quiet for a moment. Then he gestured to one of his sons, who placed a folder on the table. This is what Victor promised us. Match it, and you have our loyalty. Adrian opened the folder. His expression didn't change, but Lena saw his jaw tighten. This is 40% above what any family gets. It's unsustainable. Then you have your answer. Wait, Lena stepped forward before Adrian could respond. You're not actually considering Victor's offer. You're testing to see how desperate Adrian is. Alexei's eyes shifted to her. Bold accusation, Mrs. Voss. Accurate accusation. You've survived 3 regime changes by knowing when to bet on stability over chaos. Victor is chaos. Adrian is stability. The question isn't what he'll give you, it's whether he's still strong enough to protect what you already have. And you think he is. I know he is. Because I've seen what he's willing to do to protect what matters. And whether you like it or not, your family matters to him. Victor would burn you the moment you stopped being useful. Silence stretched. Then Alexei laughed again, this time with genuine amusement. Your father married a mouse, Adrian. You married a lioness. Interesting upgrade. Does that mean we have your loyalty? Adrian asked. It means you've earned another conversation. Come to my home tomorrow. We'll discuss terms that don't insult either of us. It wasn't a commitment, but it wasn't a refusal either. They left the warehouse with Victor muttering about manipulation and Diana looking impressed despite herself. That was reckless, Adrian said to Lena once they were in the car. It worked. This time, next time, let me handle the negotiations. Next time, don't bring offers you know are insults. Victor snorted from the driver's seat. She's got a point, sir. Adrian shot him a look but didn't argue. The meeting with Alexei the next day went smoother. Terms were discussed, compromises reached. By the time they left, the Kozlov family had pledged their support. All 3 families were secured. Victor's going to lose his mind when he finds out, Diana said. Good, Adrian replied. Let him. Angry people make mistakes. The mistake came 2 days later. Victor hit one of Adrian's warehouses, not to steal, but to send a message. He left 3 bodies and a note that said simply, "Time's up." Adrian read the note, his expression carved from ice. He wants war. Let's give it to him. The next 72 hours were brutal. Victor struck first, hitting another warehouse and 2 businesses that fronted legitimate operations. Adrian retaliated by cutting off Victor's supply lines and bribing away half his men. People died. Not civilians, thankfully, but soldiers on both sides. The city's underworld tensed, waiting to see which brother would break first. Lena watched it all from the relative safety of Adrian's home, feeling useless. She wanted to help, wanted to do something other than wait for news that Adrian had been hurt or killed. The breaking point came when Victor made his biggest mistake. He went after their father's grave. Adrian got the call at 3 a.m. By the time they arrived at the cemetery, Victor was waiting. No guards this time. Just the 2 brothers and a desecrated headstone. Seemed fitting, Victor said, since he's the reason we're here. He's dead. Leave him out of this. He's the one who started it, choosing you over me, legitimizing a bastard while his real son got nothing. You got everything. You just couldn't hold on to it. Because the old families poisoned him against me, made him think I was too volatile, too dangerous. They wanted someone they could control, someone weak. I'm not weak. Prove it. Right here, right now. No guards, no guns. Just you and me, the way it should have been 3 years ago. Adrian looked at the grave, at his brother, at the city stretched out below them. Then he shrugged off his jacket. Adrian, no, Lena said. She'd followed despite Victor's protests, had insisted on being there. It's the only way this ends, Adrian said quietly. One of us has to yield. He'll kill you. Maybe. But if I don't try, he'll kill everyone else first. The brothers faced each other in the dim light of the cemetery. For a moment, neither moved. Then Victor lunged. The fight was vicious. No technique, no elegance, just 2 men trying to hurt each other as badly as possible. They crashed through gravestones, fists connecting with bone, blood flowing from split skin. Lena watched in horror as Adrian took a hit that dropped him to his knees. Victor moved in for what looked like a killing blow. Adrian surged up, catching Victor in the ribs, using his momentum against him. They went down in a tangle of limbs, When they separated, both were bleeding, both were exhausted. Yield, Adrian gasped. Never. Then this keeps going until one of us is dead. Fine by me. They clashed again. This time, Adrian got Victor in a hold that could have broken his neck, could have ended it. He didn't. Walk away, Adrian said. Take what money you have left and disappear. I won't chase you, won't hunt you. Just go. And let you win? Nobody's winning here, Victor. We're just destroying each other. For a moment, something almost human flickered in Victor's eyes. Then it died. I'd rather die than give you the satisfaction. He twisted, breaking Adrian's hold at the cost of his own shoulder dislocating. The scream he made was inhuman, but he was free. He reached for something in his jacket. A gun. So much for no weapons. Adrian moved, but he was tired, hurt, not fast enough. The shot rang out. Victor dropped. Lena stood 10 feet away, Diana's gun in her shaking hands. She'd grabbed it when Diana wasn't looking, had been holding it the entire fight, praying she wouldn't need to use it. But when Victor had drawn his weapon, when she'd seen Adrian's death in his eyes, her body had moved on instinct. The shot had taken Victor in the shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to end the fight. Adrian stared at her, then at Victor, writhing on the ground. It's over, Adrian said to his brother. You're done. Victor laughed through his pain. You think this ends it? My people will. Your people are gone. They chose survival over loyalty the moment you started losing. Right now, they're either dead, arrested, or working for me. You have nothing left. The truth of it settled over Victor's face. I'll give you one last chance, Adrian said. Disappear. Take whatever money you can carry and leave the country. If I ever see you again, Lena won't aim for your shoulder. Victor looked at Lena, at the gun still in her hands, at the absolute certainty in her eyes. She'd do it too. You always did know how to pick them. Is that a yes? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice. Make the smart one for once. Victor struggled to his feet, clutching his wounded shoulder. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. They watched Victor stumble away into the darkness. Diana appeared from wherever she'd been waiting, saw her gun in Lena's hands, and raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. We should go, she said. Police will have heard the shot. Adrian pulled Lena close. She was shaking now, the adrenaline fading, leaving only the realization of what she'd done. You saved my life, he said quietly. I couldn't let him kill you. You could have killed him. I didn't want to. I just wanted it to stop. Adrian kissed her forehead. It has. It's over. And it was. Victor left the country that night, his remaining resources liquidated, his power broken. Word spread through the city that Adrian Voss had won, that he'd given his brother mercy instead of death. Some saw it as weakness. Most saw it as strength. The families that had wavered pledged their loyalty. The ones that had chosen Victor came crawling back, begging for forgiveness. Adrian gave it to some. The others learned what happened when mercy ran out. Lena spent days processing what she'd done. She'd shot a man, wounded him badly. The gun had felt so heavy in her hands, and then so light. Does it get easier? She asked Adrian one night. The violence? No. If it did, I'd be Victor. How do you live with it? By remembering why I do it, who I'm protecting, what I'm building. He pulled her closer. You're part of that now. My reason, my conscience, the thing that keeps me from becoming him. That's a lot of pressure. You can handle it. You already have. She supposed she had. The woman who'd begged a stranger for help outside a cafe felt like someone from another life. That Lena had been invisible, afraid, certain the world had nothing better to offer. This Lena had married a crime boss, survived assassination attempts, and shot a man to save her husband's life. She didn't know if that made her stronger or just different, but she knew she wasn't going back. The nightmares started 2 weeks after Victor left. Lena would wake gasping, the weight of Diana's gun still phantom heavy in her hands, the sound of the gunshot echoing in her ears. Adrian held her through them, didn't ask questions, just kept her grounded until her breathing evened out. "It'll pass," he said one morning after a particularly bad night. "How do you know?" "Because you're stronger than the guilt. You did what you had to do. Eventually, your brain will accept that. And if it doesn't, then we deal with it together." Simple words, but they helped. The city settled into an uneasy peace. Victor's departure left a power vacuum that Adrian filled methodically, carefully, making sure every family understood the new order. Some territories got redistributed, some captains got promoted. A few who'd been too eager to side with Victor found themselves suddenly unemployed, if they were lucky. Lena learned the rhythms of Adrian's world. The early morning meetings, the late night calls, the constant calculus of loyalty and threat. She sat in on negotiations now, not speaking much but watching, learning. The families who'd initially dismissed her as decoration started treating her with wary respect after word spread about what happened in the cemetery. "They're afraid of you," Diana said one afternoon. They were having coffee, an unlikely friendship that had formed in the aftermath of violence. Some of them more than they fear Adrian. "That's ridiculous. I shot someone once. Adrian's built an entire career on being dangerous." Adrian's danger is predictable, calculated. You're an unknown variable. That scares people more than they'd admit. Lena wasn't sure how she felt about that. Being feared was different than being invisible, but she wasn't convinced it was better. 3 months after the cemetery, Adrian came home with news that changed everything. "I'm closing the trafficking operations," he said over dinner. Lena set down her fork. "What?" "All of them. The girls Victor was running through the port, the labor camps, everything. I'm shutting it down." "Won't that cost you?" "Millions, maybe tens of millions. But I can't—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "I can't look at you and pretend that business is acceptable anymore." Victor was right about one thing. I've been turning a blind eye to operations I knew were wrong because they were profitable. That ends now. The families won't like it. The families will adjust. I'm not asking permission. What about the people? The ones being trafficked? I'm working with someone, a federal agent who's been trying to bring down these operations for years. We're going to make a deal. I give them Victor's entire network, everything he built, everyone he worked with. In exchange, immunity from my organization on anything not directly related to trafficking. Lena stared at him. "You're making a deal with the feds." "I'm making a deal that might actually save lives. Is that a problem?" "No, it's just not what I expected." "Good. I'm tired of being predictable." The deal took 6 weeks to negotiate. Adrian met with prosecutors, provided evidence, wore a wire to meetings with people who'd worked with Victor. Lena watched him transform piece by piece from crime boss to something closer to witness. "Are you sure about this?" she asked one night. They were in bed, Adrian's laptop open beside them, reviewing documents he'd be turning over in the morning. "No, but I'm sure about you, and I'm sure that I don't want to look at you 10 years from now and see someone who can't stand what I've become." "I already know what you are." "You know what I was. This is about what I'm choosing to be." The raids happened on a Tuesday morning. Coordinated strikes across the city, federal agents hitting every location Adrian had identified. By noon, 37 people were under arrest. By evening, the news was calling it the largest human trafficking bust in the state's history. Adrian's name never appeared in any of the reports. "How does it feel?" Lena asked, watching the news coverage. "Like I just burned down half my empire to save the other half." "Worth it?" "Ask me in a year." The families were furious. 2 of them demanded meetings, wanted explanations for why their revenue streams had been severed. Adrian gave them the same answer he'd given Lena. "I'm done with that business. Anyone who wants to continue it can do so without my protection. See how long you last." It was a calculated risk. Some families might splinter off, might try to rebuild what Victor had created, but most were too invested in Adrian's protection to walk away over one revenue stream, no matter how profitable. Alexei Kozlov was the first to publicly support the decision. The trafficking was always going to bring heat we didn't need, he said at a meeting of the major families. Better to cut it now while we can negotiate terms than wait for the feds to do it for us. Others grudgingly agreed. A few didn't. Those families found themselves slowly frozen out, their territories reassigned, their power diminishing. By 6 months after Victor's exile, the organization had restructured entirely. Leaner, more focused, arguably more legitimate than it had been in decades. Your father would be turning in his grave, Victor said one day. He was smiling when he said it. Good. Let him spin. The changes weren't just professional. Adrian started pulling back from the day-to-day operations, delegating more to his captains, spending less time on violence and more on strategy. He bought a second house outside the city, something with land, with space, with rooms that weren't designed for conducting business. What's this for? Lena asked when he first showed it to her. The future. Assuming we have one. Why wouldn't we? Because this life doesn't usually come with happy endings, but I thought we should try for one anyway. They started spending weekends there, away from the city, away from the constant threat assessment, away from everything except each other. Lena planted a garden that mostly died because she had no idea what she was doing. Adrian built a fence that was perfectly straight, because of course it was. This is nice, she said one Sunday afternoon. They were sitting on the porch watching the sun set over land that belonged to them. Nice? Normal, quiet. Like we're regular people. We're not regular people. I know, but we can pretend. Adrian pulled her closer. I don't want to pretend. I want this to be real. It is real? Not yet. But it could be. 2 months later, Lena found out she was pregnant. She'd suspected for a week before she took the test. The exhaustion, the nausea, the way coffee suddenly smelled wrong. When the test showed positive, she sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes, trying to figure out how she felt. Terrified, mostly, but also something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. She told Adrian that night over dinner. Didn't build up to it, didn't create a moment, just set down her fork and said, I'm pregnant. He went completely still. You're sure? 3 tests? Sure. How far along? Maybe 6 weeks? I don't know yet. I have an appointment next week. Adrian's expression did something complicated. Too many emotions trying to exist at the same time. And you want to keep it? Do you want me to? That's not an answer. Neither is your question. They stared at each other across the table. Then Adrian laughed, the sound rough and surprised. We're going to be terrible at this. At what? Parenting? All of it. But yes, especially parenting. So that's a yes. You want the baby? I want everything with you. Even the parts that scare me, especially those. Lena felt something in her chest loosen. Okay then. Okay then. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lena said, Your world is going to eat this child alive. Then we change the world. Just like that? Just like that. He made it sound simple. It wasn't. But watching him start planning, start preparing, start thinking about a future that included tiny humans who'd need protecting, Lena thought maybe it was possible. The pregnancy was rough. Lena spent the first trimester violently sick, lost weight instead of gaining it, worried constantly that something was wrong. Adrian hovered like an anxious shadow, drove her to every appointment, demanded answers from doctors who weren't used to being interrogated. You need to calm down, Lena said, after he'd reduced one poor obstetrician to stammering. She wasn't explaining the risks properly. She was trying to reassure us that everything's fine. Fine isn't good enough. I need to know everything that could go wrong so I can prevent it. You can't prevent biology, Adrian. Watch me. He couldn't, of course, but he tried. Hired the best doctors, set up the house with equipment that belonged in a hospital, created contingency plans for scenarios that had a 1 in a million chance of happening. "This is what you do, isn't it?" Lena asked one night, watching him review medical files. "When you're scared, you plan." "Well, planning keeps people alive. Or it drives them crazy. I'll take crazy if it means you're both safe." The baby came early. Not dangerously early, but enough to send Adrian into controlled panic mode. Lena went into labor on a Thursday afternoon, barely 36 weeks along. By Thursday night, they had a daughter. Small, angry, with a set of lungs that suggested she'd inherited her father's force of will. The nurses cleaned her up, checked her over, declared her healthy despite the early arrival. "She's perfect," the doctor said, handing the baby to Lena. Adrian stood frozen, staring at the tiny human in Lena's arms like he'd never seen anything more terrifying. "You want to hold her?" Lena asked. "I'll break her." "You won't." "I might." "Adrian, hold your daughter." He sat carefully on the edge of the bed and let Lena transfer the baby into his arms. For a moment, he just looked at her. Then his expression did that complicated thing again, too many emotions at once. "We made this," he said quietly. "We did." "She's so small." "Most babies are. What if I can't protect her?" "You will. We both will." The baby opened her eyes, gray, like her father's, and seemed to look directly at Adrian. He made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Hello, little one. I'm your father, and I'm going to make sure nothing ever hurts you." It was a promise he'd spend the rest of his life keeping. They named her Elena, after Lena's mother. It felt right. A connection to the past, to the woman who'd raised Lena to be stronger than circumstance. The family sent gifts, flowers, cards, donations to charities they'd probably never heard of before. Everyone wanted to acknowledge the boss's daughter, wanted to maintain goodwill. Alexei Kozlov sent an antique christening gown that had been in his family for 5 generations. "For the next heir," the card read. "Does he think she's taking over the organization?" Lena asked. "Probably. These families think in dynasties." "And what do you think?" Adrian looked at Elena, sleeping in her bassinet. "I think she gets to choose when she's old enough. If she wants this life, I'll teach her everything. If she doesn't, I'll make sure she has options." "You'd let it all go? For her?" "I'd burn it down for her. For you. For any family we build." He meant it. Lena could hear it in his voice. The second pregnancy came faster than expected. Elena was barely a year old when Lena realized she was pregnant again. This time the test didn't terrify her. She'd survived one baby. She could survive another. Adrian took the news with slightly less panic. "At least we know what to expect this time." "Do we, though?" "We know more than we did." The second baby was easier. Less sickness, less worry, more confidence that her body knew what it was doing. A boy this time, born 2 weeks late like he was already proving a point about being stubborn. They named him Marcus, after the cook from the cafe who'd tried to protect Lena that first night. A small tribute to the man who'd been kind when kindness mattered. "You're building a family," Diana said, visiting with gifts for both children. "A real one." "As opposed to what?" "As opposed to the kind Adrian grew up in. The kind where children are assets or liabilities, but rarely just children. These two are definitely children. Loud, messy, expensive children. And he loves every second of it." She was right. Adrian, who'd built an empire on control and calculation, became someone completely different around his kids. Patient where he'd been demanding, gentle where he'd been hard, present in ways his own father had never been. "You're good at this," Lena said one night. They were both exhausted. Elena had been crying for an hour. Marcus needed feeding. The house was a disaster. At what? Surviving chaos? At being a father. "I'm making it up as I go." "Aren't we all?" He kissed her forehead. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me this. For believing I could be something other than what I was." You gave me the same thing. It was true. The scared waitress who'd begged a stranger for help felt like someone from a different life. That woman had been small, invisible, certain she'd never matter to anyone. This woman had built a life that mattered, had a husband who'd restructured his entire empire to be worthy of her, had children who'd grow up knowing they were loved, protected, chosen. The organization continued to evolve. Adrian accelerated the transition toward legitimate businesses, started phasing out the operations that couldn't withstand legal scrutiny. It was slow work, requiring careful negotiation with families who'd built their power on activities that would never be legal. Some adapted, some didn't. The ones who didn't found themselves increasingly isolated, their power diminishing as Adrian's legitimate empire grew. "You're building something that could actually last," Victor said. He'd been promoted to second in command, the closest thing Adrian had to a partner. "Something that could survive beyond you. That's the idea. Your father would hate it. My father's dead, and his way of doing things died with Victor. 5 years after Victor's exile, word came that he'd been found dead in a hotel room in Buenos Aires. Drug overdose, the report said. No signs of foul play. Adrian read the news on his phone and felt nothing. "You okay?" Lena asked. Elena was at school, Marcus was napping. They had a rare moment of quiet. "He was already dead to me. This just makes it official." "No guilt? Should there be?" "I don't know. He was your brother. He was a monster who happened to share my blood. The world's better without him." It was harsh, but it was also true. Whatever Victor might have been in another life, in this one he'd chosen violence and paid the price. The funeral was small. Just Adrian and Lena standing at a grave in a city they'd never visited, saying goodbye to a man who'd never learned when to stop fighting. "Do you think he regretted it?" Lena asked. "At the end?" "I think he regretted getting caught. That's not the same thing." They flew home that night. Elena ran to hug Adrian the moment they walked in, Marcus toddling behind her. Adrian swept them both up, held them close, and Lena saw the exact moment he let go of whatever ghost Victor had been. The past was done. The future was now. Years blurred together after that. Elena grew into a fierce, smart child who asked too many questions and took no nonsense from anyone. Marcus was quieter, more thoughtful, but with a stubborn streak that rivaled his father's. They learned about their father's business gradually, age-appropriately. Adrian never lied about what he'd done, but he was careful about how much truth they could handle. "Did you hurt people?" Elena asked when she was 9. "Yes." "Were they bad people?" "Some of them, not all." "Do you still hurt people?" "Not if I can help it." She'd thought about this for a long moment. "Good. Hurting people is wrong. Usually yes, but protecting people you love sometimes means doing wrong things for the right reasons. That's complicated. Most important things are." By the time Elena was 12 and Marcus was 10, the organization had transformed almost entirely. Most of the revenue came from legitimate sources now: real estate, investments, businesses that could withstand audits. The illegal operations that remained were small, contained, carefully managed. Adrian had done what he'd promised, changed the world his children would inherit. Lena watched him at a meeting one day, negotiating a deal that was completely legal, completely above board, and felt something like pride. This man who'd threatened to kill for her had learned to build instead of destroy. "You did it," she said that night. "Did what?" "Became someone new, someone better. I became someone worthy of you. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes, because I'm still me, still capable of the things I've done. I just choose differently now." "Because of me?" "Because of us. All of us." He pulled her close, and Lena rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, alive. They'd survived when survival seemed impossible, built something when destruction seemed inevitable. found love in a world that didn't believe in it. On their 10th anniversary, Adrian took Lena back to the cafe where they'd met. It had closed years ago, replaced by a coffee chain that didn't know its own history. But they stood outside anyway, looking at the spot where a scared waitress had made a desperate choice. "Do you regret it?" Adrian asked. "Any of it?" "Ask me something harder." "I'm serious." Lena turned to face him. 10 years had added lines to his face, silver to his hair, but his eyes were the same. That winter gray that had seen too much but still chose to see her. "I regret the people who died, the violence that didn't need to happen, the fear that comes with loving someone in your world. But do I regret choosing you, choosing this life? Never. Even knowing everything you know now, especially knowing everything I know now." She kissed him there on the street in front of the ghost of where they'd begun. When they broke apart, Adrian was smiling. "What?" Lena asked. "Just thinking about that night, how terrified you were, how certain I was that getting involved with you was a mistake." "Was it?" "Best mistake I ever made." They walked back to the car hand in hand. Tomorrow, there'd be meetings, negotiations, the constant balance of power that defined their world. Elena had a soccer game. Marcus had a piano recital. The organization needed attention. The future needed planning. But tonight, they had this. The two of them, still standing, still fighting, still choosing each other every single day. In the end, that was all that mattered. Not the empire they'd built, or the enemies they'd defeated, not the money, or the power, or the fear they commanded. Just two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided that the light they created together was worth protecting. Lena Park had walked into a bar terrified and alone, begging a stranger for help. She'd found safety, found love, found a life she'd never imagined possible. And Adrian Voss, who'd thought he was incapable of caring about anything beyond power, had found someone worth being better for. They weren't perfect. Their world wasn't clean. The things they'd done couldn't be undone. The choices they'd made couldn't be unmade. But they were alive. They were together. And in a world that had tried so hard to break them both, that was its own, the kind worth everything.